was a drive way back. It might be. It could be. It is. Holy cow. Welcome to another broadcast of Bricks Behind the Ivy.
Hey, Cub fans, welcome to another episode of Bricks Behind the Ivy. Thank you so much to our awesome sponsors, Wrigleyville Sports, the best sports store in Wrigleyville, and Yaggy Road Roasting Company, based in Valparaiso, Indiana, serving cups of coffee just as special as the moments you drink them in.
Hello, welcome to Bricks Behind the Ivy.
Hey, Brickheads, welcome to another episode of Bricks Behind the Ivy. I'm your hostess, the mostest, Jeff Gandy, Cubs Rogowskis. This is, of course, a Cubs podcast for Cub fans by Cub fans. We try to dive deep into all things on the north side, and today we are going down the video game path. I have joining me Antonio, the Ant Ortiz, as known on YouTube, who is an MLB The Show content creator. If you have listened or watched this show for a while, you know that I am a big MLB The Show guy. I play a decent amount of video games, but my PlayStation account tells me that a volume of those are sports games, and the largest volume of that is MLB The Show. So I thought I'd bring an MLB The Show content creator on today to talk about our thoughts on the game for all you gamers out there. Antonio, thanks for joining Bricks Behind the Ivy today.
Thank you for having me. Yeah, I'm looking forward to this.
So we were talking a little bit off air before recording today about, your baseball roots, and it's a Bricks Behind the Ivy tradition to kind of talk about, where the ivy was planted, where your bug for baseball started. And you're from the Chicago area and a Cubs fan. Tell us your baseball origin story.
Yeah, so I don't currently live like Chicago or the Chicago suburbs anymore, but I grew up in like the western suburbs. And so like my dad, he was a Cubs fan. And so like just growing up, I was watching the Cubs, and it just kind of stuck with me. Where I was like, you know what? Yep, this is my team. So like I grew up watching like Sosa. So it was like that prime of like, oh man, this is a superstar right here. And so like you watch him, you watch like the race with McGuire, and I'm like, man, this is baseball. This is fun. This is exciting. So I've seen some good Cubs teams. I've seen some bad Cubs teams. But it's just one of those things where like when you watched it, you're like, the atmosphere is amazing at Wrigley. Like it's just one of those teams that's like, it was fun to watch. And so like from there I was just like, yep, we're gonna stick with them. And from there it's just like one of those things that stuck. I was like, yeah, this is my team.
Yeah, so I think it's fun, in always listening to people's baseball backstories and getting an idea of how people find the team. And I think it's interesting, and I think this is a discussion for a different pod, a different day, that like we're in the marquee era for the Cubs, and like you live outside of Illinois now, and like the marquee app is probably this great thing where you can easily access the Cubs, where for people in the area, it's like what the WGN days are over, the national exposure. It's just so, but that was the lifeblood of like every Cub fan of a certain age, of this just like being on the TV and like attracted to like what our parents or grandparents were doing, and like this familial tradition and loyalty. And it'll be interesting to see kind of like how that shifts for Cub fans as we move forward. And maybe they love consuming Cubs podcasts out of people's basements in the south suburbs of Chicago. I don't know. We'll see what happens. But, let's not bury the lead. I brought you on today to talk about MLB The Show 25. For those who are not aware, MLB The Show comes out in the spring every year. It's the only baseball game, well, really the only true baseball sim on the market. There are some other baseball games now, but it's very different than when I was a kid, whereas like I was saving money to get high heat, triple play, or with an MVP, and like the MLB Power Pros and all the different iterations of baseball games. Like I would have 5 of them, and when I was losing in one, I just changed the disc. But now it's now I only have one cloud to yell at. That's MLB The Show. Came out on March 18th this past year, so I thought we kind of go through some things in MLB The Show this year, and kind of talk about overall thoughts on the game in kind of a hitter format. So we'll like what single, double, triple, home run, what they're doing well, and we'll talk about what some things that need to be developed. So Singles, obviously, it's kind of the lowest end. If you're a newer gamer that might be newer to the baseball gaming space, like what's something MLB The Show does, sort of okay, that, might need some improvement or a little bit more than warning track power?
Okay. So like, yeah, like, well, one, it's like interesting the way that you like formatted this, where it's like single double. So I'm like, oh wow, I never really thought of it like this. But like, I mean, like you said, they're the only baseball game out there, and so like I would say just like they do a good job just putting like a baseball product out there. And I think just like as a base, like it's one of those things where like when you're going on the game and like recreating a sports game is pretty difficult. So like, you're always going to have a bug or two where like something you see a hit and you're like, how did that happen? Or you see like a diving play from a defender and you're like, okay, that was a little cartoony. But like, I think they just put out like a good game where you're like, okay, this is something where I can kind of get lost in. And like you're also going to have those days where you're like, all right, how come everything's going against me? But like, I think as like a good like foundation, they do a pretty good job. And like, it's one of those things where like, I enjoy the game and I know like going into it, like I'm just here to have fun with it. So as long as I have that mentality where like, I'm going in to have fun with the video game, I think that's like one of those things that really helps rather than just like, okay, I need to win every single time. Cause like, I don't know. It's a sports game. You're going to lose too. So I don't know. I think just as a foundation, they do a pretty good job of like recreating a baseball game.
Yeah, I think, for me, it's one of those things that I don't like to play sports games where I win all the time anymore.
Yeah,
that's not what I'm in it for. Like, because then the realism disappears. Like the Madden, I feel like Madden is probably the game I point to the most of like the unrealistic. Like you're either scoring 120 on your opponent or you're turning on like absolutely ridiculous, like AI designed, like not even fair secondary coverage in the higher tiers of Madden, and you're losing. And that's I feel like MLB The Show does do a very good job of kind of being a very accessible. One of the things, and maybe I'll define this as a single, is I like the dynamic difficulty a lot, because then there's to me, there's like this ebb and flow of like being on a heater. Like sometimes when you're playing actual baseball, it looks like a beach ball, and other times it looks like a ping pong ball. And some days I'm trending on the Hall of Fame end of hitting, and then I go in a slump, and like it knocks me back down to All-Star, and I'm able to kind of find my groove again and see some of those base hits land. And yeah, it can't be easy designing a game that is entirely based on a game that is based on failure. Like baseball is not a sport where like the best players should be hitting 700, like the best players should be hitting 300. But in a video game, that's going to be a really hard thing to sell if players are failing 70% of the time, because they're not going to want to play it.
Yeah.
So let's give some context for the audience as well. So you have a YouTube channel and you create a lot of different content. A lot of content that I watched on your channel is franchise-based content. So it's going through and simulating like a GM type mode for those who aren't aware in MLB The Show. Can you give us like an idea of the content you create and your process with MLB The Show and being an MLB The Show content creator?
Yeah. So when I first started, I kind of noticed that like that was an untapped market where people really weren't kind of taking that GM mode approach. So that's what I kind of ran with. And so like, it's really just about taking your team and you're like, all right, I haven't seen my Cubs win a World Series in a while. Let me build what they currently have and go and win it all. And so like, for me, it's one, all right, let's go win a World Series with this team. But two, let's make it fun. Like, let's not always sign the best players. Let's try to find that hidden gem that could potentially be like a cult hero for this run to a World Series, or maybe a draft pick that I find that ends up just absolutely developing into a superstar. But it's really just trying to find a fun and different way to approach winning a World Series rather than just going out and spending all the money that like the Dodgers are doing right now. Something that's a little bit fun and different. But
I remember
shot at the Dodgers, but You know,
No,
it's
it's
just
always
it's a good
necessary.
it's a good understanding point, like doing something that's a little bit different than the norm.
Yeah, I think that's the mode that I've always, and maybe it's Theo Epstein that's made like that part of the game interesting. I'm
Mhm.
not sure what it is, but my best friend from high school, junior high, like we've been doing that type of mode, even if we had to do the stats ourselves for like 30 years, and we still do like a couch co-op type franchise almost
Mhm.
every Friday. Even now that I have kids, it's like clockwork. Like we take a
Yeah.
team from each league and we play the games where they play each other, which is more fun now because like
Oh, yeah.
you're guaranteed to have games, where there were some years like where depending on, we'd have to pick the specific teams that had
Yeah.
matchups. So but yeah, like, and then we like keep spreadsheets of like who's won the World Series and like who's had the best prospects and whose players won the most MVPs, and like just for like bragging rights until the next iteration of the game came out. And that's how I play the game. And yeah, you're right, like that was probably a market that folks were interested in as we entered that like prospect focus era of the baseball game.
So like for me, like I'm 32, so like growing up, like that was franchise was kind of like that main mode.
Yeah.
And then they got like, then they started to introduce like the online stuff. So it's like that era of gaming where it's like online started to kind of start and kind of really take off. Like, so growing up, it was like, oh, I played franchise so much. And then online gaming really kind of blew up. So like for me, it was just always franchise. Like that was really pulled me into sports games because I liked building up a team. I liked finding new trades or new players in a draft, or finding a prospect that developed and kind of like grew with the team that I built. So it was always fun kind of creating those storylines that you just had throughout your runs and your whole saves, because it was like, oh, you kind of get attached to those players, kind of like in real life. It's the same thing where you're like, you see these players grow up, or you kind of have those cult heroes that you just really are like, yeah, I'm happy they're doing well. I'm happy they're developing. They're happy that they're part of the team.
Yeah, I think that's it is interesting, like the debate in the sports game community, for those not aware of like ultimate team modes and like card building modes, and that is trying to create kind of like that theoretical franchise. But like there's a gaming, like a I don't know, sports betting component of like buying these packs and the odds of building this team. And then there's the conversation around whether or not it's fair to like pay to win in these games, because you're going to take a lower level team and have to play a higher level team. But I think that's a perfect transition for me for a double for this game. Something like a really solid hitter is going to hit a lot of doubles in the modern game. You want home runs, but for me, that's Diamond Dynasty. Diamond Dynasty is a card collecting mode where you collect basically your favorite players by doing all these different things. You can do it online, you can do it offline, you can play your friends, you can not play your friends, and basically do all these different achievements and different game modes to put together a team based on baseball cards you get. And that's changed dynamically back to what they call the power creep. Do you want to explain what that is for our novice audience?
So the power creep is at the beginning of the year, like players aren't as good. So they kind of lower their attributes and they kind of release kind of the lower tier cards that they can kind of get away with at the beginning just because they're not as good. And so throughout the year, players will have their attributes raised and they'll have better cards. So the game just doesn't become as stale. So you're not dropping 99 overall rated cards right at the beginning of the year. You have the best team within 2 weeks of the game coming out. Because if you have the best team right at the beginning of the game releasing, you're going to lose interest. So it just kind of gives you a way to collect cards throughout the year, collect different cards throughout the year, and keep you interested, because there's always like a new, better card coming out.
Yeah, and I think they've done a really good job of like with that power creep. There's been a little more balance, I feel, and the online community early on, like it's not, when I hop on them with the Diamond Dynasty, like I'm in and out of Diamond Dynasty, I don't feel like I'm getting absolutely railed by some guy who dumped $1,000 in this card. You can get all these cards if you want, like really good cards for free by just playing the mode, or you could skip all that and dump some money into it and get the cards. But like the cards are going to be the same for both of those people. So when you're playing other people, there's not like this huge competitive advantage like in other Ultimate Team modes.
Yeah. I will say they do a really good job of having people acquire cards without spending any money. Like a lot of it's just you have to grind to play the game and acquire those cards through, the different missions and stuff like that. So I will say, like, for a sports game that you do have to collect cards and you can't spend money, they actually do a really good job of allowing people to collect cards without spending any money. It's probably one of the best sports games out there that allows you to collect cards without spending money. No money spent is what they say.
Yeah, I was gonna say, for those who are interested, there's a lot of different MLB The Show streamers who will do a lot of the card carrying content, and they call it their no money spent team.
Mm-hmm.
So you can see how good these guys like get their teams and not spend any money. I've not ever jumped money into the secondary like stubs. I've always earned enough stubs.
Microtransactions.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. I've always been able to earn enough stubs just playing the game to build the teams I want. And my teams are always Cubs centric. Like I want all the Cub players. I don't really care about the other guys. But yeah, I think is there something besides Diamond Dynasty that you think is a double, something that's really solid in the game that folks should check out?
I think it's one of those things that kind of gets overlooked just because people kind of skip through the cutscenes sometimes if you're playing like franchise or stuff. But they do a lot of like storylines or like prospect highlights and stuff kind of like on the news ticker, or it'll pop up in the cutscenes during a game. And there's a lot of in-depth stuff that like I never would have thought of. So they'll have like a fake fantasy sports stat line, or like a prospect highlight, or a storyline that's happening within the franchise save. And so I think they do a really good job with like the presentation of the game of baseball in a baseball video game. So just a lot of presentation stuff, storylines, and just kind of like things that you wouldn't necessarily think of going into a sports game to make the immersion better, like the presentation as a whole. I think they do a really good job of really making it feel like you're watching a baseball game.
Yeah, I think this year's iteration too feels like there was a lot of love given to that. Maybe not necessarily early on. There was a commentary bug that made me laugh, where every base hit was a line drive to right field.
Yeah,
which like folks, if you just look on the internet, it's everywhere. It was
and that's Boog saying it too. So
yeah, correct. Yeah,
like, yeah, there he is. Yeah.
It's like Cub fans get a lot of Boog Shanvi, so then like you're hearing this one line like for every time you hit the ball. It was really jarring. But yeah, there's in the franchise mode, I've noticed too, like some cool things where they like while it's loading, when it goes in the presentation package, there's like 5 or 6 at minimum, like storylines that you can pick, and then there's a presentation package tied to whatever storyline you pick. So maybe you called up a prospect and it says like prospect's debut, and you can click on that one. Or like maybe Dansby Swanson, and we're going to use a lot of Cubs examples here, is like on a heater. They're going to talk about his last 5 games. And like, there's some really cool, just like makes it feel way more organic. And some of the visuals too of like the ticker on the bottom has way more advanced stats and fantasy projections for players at the beginning of the year, like all-star voting, real-time scores. They just have done, like, there's been a lot of TLC to making the game feel like you're watching, which is something MLB The Show I feel like has always done very well. It was those I feel like the early marketing of PS3 was trying to sell Uncharted as like you can play that in front of your girlfriend because it's like playing a movie, and then the other one was MLB The Show of like someone would sit and watch you play it because it's like watching a broadcast. Like those were like the two early like easy marketing things for PlayStation games, and MLB The Show has done a really good job of kind of retaining that. I think they've potentially fallen behind a bit on the commentary, but I think it's harder to make a ton of relevant baseball commentary where like you cannot talk about a basketball game and like just have some guy interject with like 3 and like it still sound like way less repetitive than in baseball. There's like, it's hard to predict every nuance. So I understand the challenge there.
And also like it's a sport that's built around like failure, 3 out of 10 times. That's a great hitter right there. So like, and also like, I think like when I'm watching baseball, like I don't need like the announcer to be excited the whole time, because like it's not a sport that like there's always crazy plays happening, or there's always like unnecessary like a scream, or like, oh man, he got that ground ball, and it's like, okay, it was just a routine ground ball, like holy cow. But
yeah, I think there's like a
like
fine line between like yelling the whole time like the guy in Cleveland on the radio, or like being like NPR at the Masters, like, and he winds up for the putt here on the 17th and we'll watch it. Like there's definitely a little bit of a middle ground there, and I think that's really tough. I think it's especially in baseball, of like really getting crowd energy and announce energy for like the really important moments, because like I'm sure that's designed around like win probability statistics and stuff. And like at times it's going to fit really well and it's going to be a really awesome, like magical video game moment. And there's times it doesn't work so well. And like it's jarring, and like that's video games in general. So that's
yeah.
So I
think like as an announcer, like going into it, I feel like it's got to be pretty difficult to be like, okay, I'm just reading taglines. So like how can I make this actually sound like I'm in the booth watching a game? So like I feel like that's got to be pretty difficult. You're almost like an actor at that point, rather than just like a broadcaster. Exactly. And like I know Boog's a pretty divisive character right now in the Cubs community as Cubs community as is. So hearing him even more, it's like, all right, I can kind of get it.
I'm going to say something controversial for a very Cubs specific audience. I don't mind Boog. I really don't. And to me, I thought it was really special in a weird way for some, like as a person who's played MLB The Show. Excuse me. I think is this the 20th iteration of the game? Or is it more than that now? I
don't know.
Offhand. I'll say 20 plus years of video gaming. I've played MLB The Show. I've played every iteration. I've started this new thing where I want to collect a physical copy of every game for my man cave down here, because like the game has meant so much to me. And there's only been one version of the show that's had a Cub player on it, and it was Javi Baez, which I want to talk about that really quickly. Actually not right now, but we'll talk about it in like one of the developmental things I have. But yeah, I don't mind Boog, and it's super cool in a weird way to be like, that's the Cubs announcer in this video game. Like that's like how in San Diego, like I like knew who Matt Vasgersian was for years, because Santa Maria was all over my TV for 15 years. And it was, it's just like, I know what this does. And like Boog has talked about it. He's like, I have kids who come up to me all the time. They're like, you're the guy in my video game. And like that, that means something to these guys. And it's cool as a Cub fan to like kind of have that connection. But there's other times where I'm like, man, I like 162 times a year at minimum, I'm listening to this guy on TV. And then like the 200 hours plus I dump in this video game. Like I also hear this guy, I'm like, I kind of miss Matt Vasgersian.
And then I think like with the Cubs broadcast, they kind of bring on so many different like guest broadcasters too. So like, yeah, I think that's a different topic for another day. But like, man, the Cubs broadcast sometimes it's a brutal listen sometimes. Like there's a couple individuals that keep coming back where I'm like, can we just get them like for a couple innings a game and then maybe get back to Boog?
Are any of them specific guys who only show up for a West Coast trip? Like let's say, for example, when they're playing the Padres.
Sometimes a person just needs to just, let the game happen. He doesn't always need to talk.
Yeah. There was a moment, not to dump on this person. There was a moment in the game last night with Sutcliffe, which like, I think there's some really good moments with Sut in the broadcast. But like you said, like there doesn't always need to be noise. I think Joe Girardi has that tendency as well, where it's just like, you don't have to talk now, Joe. Like we could just let the game happen. But he was saying something about a pitcher. It's like, this guy's really going to feature breakers because just like he doesn't have a fastball. And the pitcher, I think it was Moorhen from the Padres, pumps in a 100-mile-per-hour fastball. It's like, did you not read the notes? So this guy's like, he's like touching triple digit, and it just got like, it was just quiet on the broadcast. So it's like, yeah, what do you say now? It's like, yep, you're right. He doesn't have a fastball.
You could tell like he definitely has like the baseball mind, but it's just sometimes he kind of just talks himself into a corner where it's just like, just let it happen.
Exactly. So let's, I think it's a perfect transition to thinking about Nico Horner's game-winning triple, dating this recording last night.
Mhm.
The triple. So like one thing that like they're really on the cusp of like doing better than anyone else. Home run would be the thing that they do the best in the sports game. Triple for me. I'm gonna go with franchise. I
Yeah.
still have my gripes. With the two biggest in online franchise, because I think that increases longevity of interaction of your
Yeah.
video game. And I point to specifically in my own gaming verse connected like franchise mode in both college football and Madden. Like Madden could be the biggest piece of garbage ever made, but my friends like from college and high school,
Yeah.
we all buy a copy and we do a connected franchise all football season. I'm in like year 20 of like a dynasty in college football, like because since like college football doesn't seem to have that same feeling, the game was way more fun than Madden. Like we haven't stopped when MLB The Show has come out. So
Yeah,
it's
college football was a great. I'm
yeah,
so glad they brought that back. It's such
yeah. I need college basketball really bad. Like I need like
that'd be
that's
fun.
mainly because my alma mater, Valparaiso Go Beacons, is not a football school. So like I would like to just don the colors of my alma mater in a video game again.
Yeah.
So like it's been since 2K8. Which was actually no, I think March Madness 2010 is technically, but I like the EA Sports college basketball game was the presentation was great, but the gameplay was terrible.
Yes.
So like it's just
Yeah.
not the same video game. But let's not go down the college path. But yeah, for the Triple A, it's franchise, and they've done a lot. I think there's like two fog of war modes within franchise now that are excellent, and that's the scouting of amateur players, which you get kind of like every week you get 3 scouts that can focus on territories or types of players and really hone in, and like you can find like generational players from time to time, and it's super exciting when you find one of these guys because like it'll show up as like it's not on anyone's radar. It's like the MLB prospect rank is not available, but like yours is 1, and he's like a 99 tier, and it's such a cool moment, and that's like makes me want to do more years in the franchise. And they've had a very similar type of situation the offseason where you can only focus on like 3 off-season players that are like free agents at a time, and sometimes their agents will call you and be like, hey, your rival's actually bidding on this guy, and like could be someone you're not even bidding on, and like you want to jump in because you don't want the team that you're fighting against like to win a division and to grab a better player that you might not necessarily need, but you're going to find a spot for them so you don't become a worse team, or like maybe like you just want to finally try to be like the Dodgers, or like there's like different opportunities where you can like up your offer and they tell you like who else is involved, and like there's some cut scenes of like when the guy finally signs a contract, like which is suspenseful. They did a really good job with like making the non on the field action parts of the franchise feel fresh.
Yeah, and I think that's kind of the like what a sports game needs, because like when you're playing an actual game, like what you're kind of getting into. You're like, I'm playing baseball right now, and it's like a lot of the off the field stuff that really kind of keeps you drawn into it, because like that's the whole point of playing franchise. You're really just building the roster and like trying to get attached to these players. So like when you're scouting, like for the first year player draft, you could be scouting a player that you think is like, man, this is going to be the guy that I draft. And then all of a sudden your scout's like, no, this guy's really bad. Don't do it. And you're like, oh, dang it. I just spent, like 3 weeks scouting this guy, and now I've wasted so much time. But like, that's kind of the fun part, where it's like, there is that uncertain factor. That is that fog of war, like you mentioned, where it's like, okay, this guy could be really good, or this guy could be really bad. Like, is my scout actually good? Like, is he doing his job right? Like, is he actually like, is this report that you gave me correct?
Yeah, and then there's a scouting budget, so like you can only spend so much on scouts. So like, do you want to spend a top dollar on a scout that like really hits the thing you need, and but then like your 2 other scouts aren't going to give you as accurate of information, so like then you're going to be at this disadvantage. It's just so well done.
Yeah. So I definitely agree that like franchise is so close to being a really good game mode, but there are those bugs and just those things that they've kind of, I don't want to say that they like haven't paid attention to over the years, because like I've talked to people over at SDS about MLB The Show
Humble
and
brag.
stuff. And so like they definitely do care. They definitely do listen, and they're definitely taking all the feedback that we have for them. It's just implementing it in a way that works without breaking the game.
Yeah.
That's the difficult part. So they've
especially
taken
a game like MLB The Show too that has this like mountain of legacy code on a sports games development cycle. Like they're gotta like if we want like these robust changes in sports games, and we as fans need to understand, then we can't have sports games every year. So like,
and it's like it'll be like you said, it's a legacy code where it's like there's developers that have worked on it from X amount of years ago that like may not even work at the company anymore. Like they might have been the ones that started the code, and now it's been however many years now, and you're at like your 10th different developer that's still working on code from like 10 people ago, and you're like, what is this? And every coder does it differently.
Sure.
So but like one of the main things that people always bring up is like, I want to set ticket prices, or I want to set, and that used to be in the game, or like the hot dog prices or whatever.
That was like MVP Baseball 2005. They just had like a video released about that, about like how that game is more of like a cult classic more than it is like necessarily the best video game ever made. But like I was just playing it honestly last night, and like one of my emulators, and like you could set hot dogs, you could like change your stadium, and like all this weird stuff. And you're like, what happened? Like, why is this? But like the baseball game has become so intricate code wise, like you can't really waste code space like for hot dog prices when like you have an advanced physics model that's like calculating how a ball should go off the bat. So like it's just I'll trade hot dog prices for better hitting. So
Yeah, so they actually said, like SDS said, that they took out those like ticket price changes and stuff because it actually wasn't doing anything to your budget. Like you could have a $0 ticket price or $100 ticket price, but it wouldn't change your budget at all. So they're like, it's not really doing anything, just taking up space. Let's get rid of it. Maybe they implement it in the future. I really don't know, but like it's one of those things where like if they're taking something out, they're probably looking to. It's like either maybe implemented in the future or it just didn't work. So they would rather have something work in the game rather than it just be like a placebo effect type thing where it's like, oh, I'm just moving a number and it's not really doing anything.
So I think it's obvious that like probably the two of us are burning a lot of our time, and based on your content as well, in the franchise mode. Yeah. If you could ask for one thing in MLB The Show 26 for franchise, I'll let you go first, and I'll have one as well. What would it be? What would you want?
Man,
I'll do two things because like now I have two as well. Like one is pretty hard.
I think bringing in like an international like free agent thing would be fun, because like right now their international players are in the first year player draft, which like doesn't make sense at all. Like I don't know how they would implement it though, so that's like kind of always something that I kind of take into consideration. Like how would you implement it? So like how can I expect them to implement something that I don't necessarily know like I would do it? But I think having something that it's like you have like a bidding war, kind of like a free agency where you just have like a pool of international players and you just kind of have like a bidding war over it.
Blind bidding, like to negotiate or something like that.
Like you can scout the players, that's fine. But like, it's just kind of like, here's a contract. Are you going to sign with me or not? I think having that just to get more players into the game, that would also be fun, just to like have like, all right, another fog of war element. Am I going to get this, foreign player onto my team? So having like a foreign international period would be cool. Man, there are a few things that I would love in the game, but I need the trade system to be overhauled. Like only trading 3 players. The trades in general are just all over the place. I know that's like a big gripe for everybody too. I know a big thing is like which roster you end up using in the vault also plays a big part of like how the feedback works. But trades are so busted sometimes. You see some really bad trades that shouldn't happen. And I know there's crazy trades that are happening in baseball now, but man, this is I think being limited to only 3 players really hurts it.
Yeah, and I think like I understand like how they for those who are unaware. Like they tried to build some logic around like the player's performance being a weighted factor, the value of the contract being a weighted factor. And like, I think it works in some ways, but then, there's just some outsized outliers and that are harder. Like, I feel like Mike Trout in this year's game is a player that I see that gets traded a lot because there's this weird, like his contract is huge, like the back end of it, and he's aging and like he's still a very good player and like he's in a situation that's not great. So the Angels don't necessarily like compete. So like I feel like every time I've done a franchise like where I haven't altered the roster, Mike Trout's going somewhere and it's for a lot less than he should, like because it's always like three prospects.
Devers is another one.
Yeah, that's another. And it's like I don't know if there's like a positional fit component there because like now that they have Breggs and like they think they have two third basemen and so it's like
their position, their age, their contracts, their in-game performance, like it's all those things kind of tied in. But then if they like have like you said, they have Bregman, so they're like, all right, well, we can move this really large contract. I don't need Devers, which is crazy to say because like,
correct.
that bat is something you want to line up. But it's interesting to see the trades that happen. Like they have a trade slider and like their base setting. Like you just see trades fly like crazy, which is, I don't know. I'll go through a save sometimes and it'll be like the first month of the season and there's already like 10 trades. And I'm like, well, I don't think that's going to happen. So I always turn down the trade slider a little bit just to make sure that I'm not seeing 40 different trades before the deadline happens.
Yeah. Like it's like, I feel like the activity picks up in May and it's that doesn't happen. And if it does, it should be an intense overpay and it's a very special situations. And I think for me, I've kind of already like not trying to bury the lead of online franchise is really just needed. I think I understand, a few years ago, like SDS had indicated that they were trying to overhaul their servers so that it could manage online franchise. And I also understand like Major League Baseball seasons are long. It's not like the 16-week or 12-week or, college where it's like there's less data that needs to be managed. So I see the struggle. And I had mentioned this on last year's episode with Chris Mills I kind of saw like a week-to-week type structure in the UI for March to October that I was like, is this like something you could transition on like where it's like you get a week of games and like everybody could play their week and then you hit advanced? Like it had like a connected franchise, like the Madden connected franchise menu feel to it. But like I know that code is a little separated from franchise from what I understand. And I think it's still a potentially Herculean task, but it really is going to like, it's going to create this intense longevity for the game.
Yeah, like servers are a weird thing, especially with like crossplay. Yeah. Because like MLB servers already just they're brutal. Like I know this weekend with like their the weekend classic for their Diamond Dynasty mode, it crashed. And it used to be like every year the servers would crash on release night for the game.
Yeah, exactly.
And it was like, holy cow, like if it can't handle just like release day or like a weekend on the game, like clearly they're pretty bad. And like I play a lot of like FIFA, which is now like EAFC. Even their servers, and like that's a big corporation, their servers like just struggle with crossplay. Like that's one of the big issues right now, where it's like if you're on PC it's fine, but something about crossplay servers, it's like really delayed. And they have issues. So like I'm looking at it with like SDS, which is like falls under the umbrella of Sony, but it's still not like
correct, technically
like a Sony thing. Like if like a big company like EA is having trouble with servers, clearly like a smaller company is probably going to have server issues too. So like man, I would love for them to get their servers, because like online franchise would be great. It would be just to get.
I think another thing that like, and this is a weird gripe, but I feel like there's not weather in the game. Like to me, like being in like a Cubs fan, like weather is always a component of like how Wrigley Field plays. And I would just love the like, hey, we started this game. oh, like it's rained out, like we have to do a doubleheader, and like having the extra roster spot for a day and like playing
Mhm.
2 games and having like manipulate your roster, like the realism, like to me that like is such a weird minutia that I would enjoy. And like
I feel like they used to have like
they
rain
did,
canceled
yeah.
out games, right?
Or
Yeah,
like
I was like,
delayed.
man,
It
was
would be
I
like
thinking that?
weird,
Yeah.
weirdly staged where it'd be like, oh, and they're putting the tarp on, and like the screen
Yeah.
would go black, and be like your
Mhm.
pitcher is now tired, and it's like
Yep.
at least it was something. But like,
Mhm.
yeah, like I can't remember the last time I've played. I don't think I've played a weather game in MLB The Show this year.
Yeah.
Not that I've played. I don't think I've seen it rain. I'm not sure.
Or
if
like
there's-
like injuries. Injuries I feel like are still kind of like a weird.
yeah,
You don't necessarily see a player getting hurt. You just kind of have like a message that pops up, and
Yeah.
like your screen just kind of like shows the background of the
like they do something
the stadium.
completely normal, and it just says your guy just died, and you're
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
oh, like,
Oh yeah, his arm just exploded.
Yeah.
And you're like, what do you mean?
It's like I didn't
that.
see him.
But-
He's walking right there.
Yeah.
Like,
Like, obviously, I don't need like this crazy cutscene or anything, but it's like,
yeah, and I think
All right.
there's I'm gonna use 3. Like I'm cheating now. I'm
that's
sorry.
fine.
I miss sounds of the show. Like I think
Okay.
that's that is a weird, like just an additional immersion. Like for those who aren't aware, that like there were 2 things. Like there's this website community, Operation Sports,
Mhm.
and it's just diehard sports video game fans. And MLB The Show, I feel like, has had one of the probably most active community on there. There used to be a guy, Full Miners roster, or OSFM it was called, and he would
Yeah.
make these rosters that would be like likeness and all the minor league players, because the MLBPA didn't have minor league players for a really long time. So he would go like, and it would be this huge project, and everybody would be like, I'm not starting my franchise until this roster. It was a community roster in the vault. And now he works for SDS. So like the
Mhm.
minor league rosters at base level of the game that come out are fantastic, because this is this long standing community. But like that was one thing of immersion, like this additional immersion that MLB The Show would provide, was getting that roster. And the other was like you could download these sound packages where like you had like weird organ sounds at Wrigley Field,
Yeah.
or you could have like the marquee presentation package song when it would load up. And yeah, I think like to me that I find it bizarre, like, you know, how uncustomizable that is,
Mhm.
like taking that away. And I've heard different things about like how like MP3s are stored on the like the PS5 versus
Okay.
and that like that's what makes it challenging. And then the other, like, yeah, I think it's weird to me like how they have an MLB Network partnership, but they took away the MLB Network package for the
Yeah.
like the graphics, the UI, like the TV presentation. Like I thought it was really cool when there was like the MLB Network game of the week, and it just said MLB
Mhm.
Network. Like literally wouldn't have to do that much, but it's, to me, that's like an additional immersion of like, well, you have all these people from MLB Network, and when you do your career mode and all this stuff, you're seeing all these folks from MLB Network, and they're talking about you, and like they're showing MLB Tonight. But when you play the game, when you're actually playing the game, there's not a single MLB The Network
Mhm.
like visual package. That's weird to me. That's
Yeah.
5 now. I'm sorry, I cheated.
No, you're fine. Like, I'm trying to think about it because like I don't know the answer, but like baseball is so weird with like broadcasting rights and everything
Yes,
like that.
correct.
So
That's
I
my
wonder
guess
if
is the
like if
issue.
it's like the regional broadcasts and stuff like that. I wonder if it's like has to do with that.
That's my
another
guess
thing.
as well. It's
Yeah.
like it's everything comes down to the inability to watch this sport, which is like, you
Mhm.
know, as fans is something we're frustrated.
Yeah.
But all right, home runs. This should be
Yeah.
easy. No
I was
home
gonna
run,
say,
hitting
'cause,
home
like,
run.
now you got like the triple. It's like everything you hear about franchise, you can hear it's like 80% of the way there. Where it's like they do such a good job, but it's just missing a little bit. A home run.
I'll give you mine.
Okay, yeah. Let's hear yours because
Yeah,
like now I'm like,
to me,
man,
it's still storylines.
Yeah.
It was last year. I think what it's done for like what Bob Kendrick has brought to this game in
Ooh,
awareness
okay, yeah.
of like the Negro League Museum,
Mhm.
like the visibility it's given like some politicians for seeing like how games can be used to educate. I
Mhm.
think there's just such a huge opportunity, even beyond just the Negro Leagues, which
Yeah.
is such an important part of the baseball story and has become more like interwoven to the baseball story. It's now acknowledged statistics like on Baseball Reference and Baseball Record books.
Mhm.
But like being able to tell like the stories of, because to me, baseball, I always tell people that baseball is like watching a soap opera for the first time. Like by the end of the first episode, like you'll know the characters and you'll know what's going on in that episode, but you've missed 40 years of backstory about why when like Janet punched Mike, why it means something, because like Janet like used to date Mike and Mike has Janet's son, but Janet doesn't know that that's her son or whatever. That doesn't really work because moms know who their kids are. But like what I'm saying is there's all this intricacy in the backstory of like every interaction in baseball of like why things are the way they are because something used to happen that came before it. It's just a really hard barrier of entry where like I don't feel like other sports have that issue where like you can get a lot of like surface value, and a lot of that has to do with just the speed of offense and like the NFL now and like the NBA and FIFA. At least there's like, or like in international soccer, there's at least constant movement. Like the guys are moving around, and it's like even if there's not scoring, like there's this like constant drama and tension. But baseball, it's like this game that is labored by its history, and like storylines embraces that history. And like I loved when they did the Derek Jeter thing. Like it's one of my favorite non-Cubs, like just his story in the game. And like he's weirdly like anointed like the cleanest player of the steroid era, which like not sure it's like being the brightest crayon in a Crayola box. I'm not sure what that means, but like it would be really cool. Like Diamond Dynasty does a great job of like nostalgia for me. It's like we're releasing the Sammy Sosa 98 home run chase card, and it's like, man, I gotta get that card. I want to see the Sosa hop in the game. And like to me, like I understand players' likenesses like cost money and stuff. Like I want like a version of this game where I can like recreate like the like just ridiculous shortstops of like the late 90s, early 2000s, where I have like Tejada, Jeter, Nomar, like these offensive A-Rod, and like duke out to see like who's the best there. Like I feel like there's not been like storylines is a pathway to like continue to educate people about the history of baseball in like such an accessible manner of like you're still playing a video game.
Yeah, and I think it would be cool to see like storylines branch out to like other players too, like you said, like just to kind of get those like kind of like the legends of the game, just to kind of hear their stories. Like obviously that would like having a deep dive into that, and also like player rights and stuff like that become an issue. But like but yeah, like with the Negro Leagues, like hearing their stories and just kind of like the players they are. And I think Bob Kendrick does a great job of telling the story. Like he just seems like just like a really cool guy to be around. So you hear him talk and you're like, yeah, this is a guy I could listen to tell a story for sure. But yeah, I do think the storylines was a pretty cool addition to the game for sure. And I'm like still trying to think of mine because like I like a lot of the stuff that like SDS does. I think now I'm like, man, I feel like now my double was like the home run because like I'm really liking the.
Well, maybe it was balling out at Wrigley that day. Like maybe your double can be a home run.
I would say like I think they do a good like SDS does a really good job of making changes for like the mistakes they did. So like last year with like Diamond Dynasty, they completely changed the way they released cards. And it was like it really didn't go over well. Like the whole like sets really and seasons and everything like that. And they were like, you know what? We messed up. Let's try the power creep again. So like I know it doesn't seem like they actually do listen to feedback because they will take out things or like they will get things wrong. But they definitely are changing stuff, and they're always trying to make like a try something new or see if it works. And so like with franchise, they did the scouting, they overhauled scouting. And it may not be to like where we really want it because like I feel like as a society we always want more, but at least they're like going out there and like, all right, let's overhaul scouting this year. All right, this year we're gonna overhaul free agency. So they're taking one area of the game, fully focusing on it, and like at least creating a baseline where they can kind of build on it from there. The way I said that kind of made it seem like I was like pushing for people to buy MLB The Show, but like I don't know.
No, and I think
I mean,
if
like,
you're a baseball fan, this is a must own. It's the only game out there, and like I think the more people who buy like a game like MLB The Show, the more resources they'll have. Like I'm not trying to like be a hawker for the game either, but like that like
definitely thinks I'm like, oh man, this how is this still in the game, man?
Yeah, it's and I think like yeah, I'm terrified of losing baseball video games in general, because like there are other sports that have struggled to return, like from the glory days of cheaper licensing and stuff. And like if your favorite sport isn't in a video game, it sometimes feels like your sport doesn't exist, and that stinks. Like, but yeah, I think we'll do, very quickly developmental. And we had talked about this a little bit off air. MLB The Show, in a lot of ways, has always been a gorgeous game. Lighting, like fabric and things like that. I think they've leaned away a little bit from that. I don't think they've really hit like a really, really impressive like PS5 or next gen or current gen, I guess was what we'll call on console visuals. But like I think MLB The Show 25 is such like a strong leap forward. Like there's a lot of uniform and lighting details that are significantly better than years past, but there are some player models in this game that like straight up take you out. And I feel like all of them are on the Cubs. And we were kind of talking about off air that, like seriously, if you load up this game and like look at Justin Steele's player model, it is haunting. It's not
Justin Steele PCA.
Yeah, it's Dansby Swanson. Like his lower face looks like a 9-year-old child, but he has the beard of a man. Like it's like Jameson Tyone's eyes look like they don't work correctly. Like there's like a lot.
I mean, if you like you look at the crowd sometimes, like from certain camera angles, you'll see like the kids in the crowd. They look kind of weird too. Yeah. But they like player
little PCAs and hats.
But yeah, sometimes just player models just look pretty off-putting. But also like just graphically, like you said, it feels like they haven't fully committed to like current gen. They're still kind of like, we have the game on the old, like the previous gen game consoles, so it feels like they're kind of held back by that to.
This is the first iteration in which there was not a PS4 release. But they still have a Switch version.
Which I feel like has to hold them back a little bit.
Yeah, correct. Which like I'm hoping the Switch 2, like which has PS4 aspirations, like will like at least help them downgrade in a way that's simpler. Because I think to me, I understand it's hard. Like baseball rosters are huge. Like at minimum, there's 90 men in an organization, especially when they're doing the minors as much as they are. And then there's 26 men on every organization, and you can't hide it like idiosyncrasies with helmets and stuff like other sports. But at the end of the day, it's tough. And like we can have this quick conversation. Like there's not a player on the Cubs until Kyle Tucker that deserved the care of having an extremely good player model. Like there are player models in this game that look fantastic, and they're exactly who you think should look fantastic. It's Paul Skeens, it's Aaron Judge, it's guys that are like on the billboard, even though I would argue that Shohei Ohtani's player model is a little bizarre. I think like he looks, but there's something cartoony about it that like bugs me. And
I wonder if that also has to do with like the graphics not being fully optimized with the like current gen. Because like they did announce that they had some improvements to graphics, but like I still feel like they're being held back.
Correct.
By not
and
like
I think
fully
like
optimizing that.
The things they talked about too is, and this is a weird thing that like has bugged me. Like, I think it was like the first PS4 version. Like they talked about like for those who don't know, SDS like does like these Twitch streams or like streams of like all the features getting added to the game. That used to just be like kind of open forum, and now there's more structured. And it's like the 5 weeks leading up to the game, they talk about different things they added to the game, and I always have adored that transparency. And when they launched the PS4 version, one of the things they talked about was like what the new technology was going to give them, like what they were able to do, and like they were able to like make more variety in the crowds. And one of the things they talked about was like fabric material differentiation, and they were showing like metal they could make look more metal, and then like when you would hit a foul ball off of like some metal part of the ballpark, it made a ting where like when it hit the pad. And now like those things are gone. Like if you hit a foul ball into like the camera well, it makes no noise, where before it used to make like a sound like it was hitting a camera well. And it's just like some of that minutia had disappeared. And like this year they talked about like they did some graphical improvements, and to me it's clear like the jerseys look way better. Like in like some of the materials on the fields, the coloring of the materials of the fields, there's some really nice touch that I didn't know they had changed. Like when guys slide into third or like slide and start, like the dirt like pops up and like spills over outside into the grass, and it's like it's when you see those things, you're like, wow, that's really great. And then something like Justin Steele comes in and looks like a zombie and pitches, and you're like, this is
what happened here?
What happened? Who approved this? And it's like, yeah, it's fine, that's great. Like they're only the second largest media market in the country. No one's gonna notice. Like it's just it's a weird situation. They really need to like take advantage of the hardware.
Yeah, just like this whole conversation we had, it just sounds like it's so close to being very, very good. It's just like it's like 80% of the way there.
It's a triple, if I had to give it a rating, it would be a triple.
Yeah, it's like so close to being like one of the best, like easily the best sports game out there. It's just missing just a little bit in every aspect where you're like, man.
And the thing that is like helping to like I feel like, to me, like if a sports video game, like college football is the best sports game out there right now because of like and it's not even feature loaded at this point, but it played better than Madden. The connected franchise mode is amazing. It like really just kept me sucked in. Like I feel like NBA 2K is the prettiest like presentation visually, like physics motion wise, but it is the most bogged down by microtransactions. It's a game that if you want to play online, you have to shell out like a second mortgage to compete, and it's just ridiculous. It makes it not fun. But MLB The Show like sits in this nice vein of like, you don't have to pay to win, and it is a very good looking game, but like there's something still holding it back to being like this incredible baseball game, and I don't think it's sales numbers. So like that's I think the game does pretty well, but I'm hoping
it does everything very well. Like you do like with the scouting, like it does really well in franchise, or like you said, you don't have to spend a bunch of money to get a really good team online, because like you can put a couple hours in here and there and you can grind and get a really good card. But it's like those extra features that everybody wants, like the cherry on top that would make it that best Sunday ever. That I feel like it's missing to really put it over the top compared to other sports games.
So I want to be respectful of your time, and I want to thank you so much for coming on Bricks Behind the Ivy. Let's give you some time here to kind of promote what you have going on in your YouTube channel, and any upcoming content you have that folks should look for.
Yeah. Well, thank you for having me on. It was cool to talk about this. And for me, it's just YouTube videos. That's like my main platform. But yeah, franchise content for MLB The Show. It's not Cubs focused or anything like that. I do all teams. So like even the teams that haven't won in a while, I make sure you guys get to feel some glory too. But yeah, I rebuild teams. I make them good. And I try to make sure that it's a fun and different experience for like every team. I don't just try to keep it the same where I'm like, let's build as fast as possible. But yeah, that's really it. I just play a video game, which sounds crazy in today's age, but yeah.
So if you have not already, hit the subscribe button on this YouTube channel. If you're watching it, make sure you hit that subscribe button. If you want to help us grow, make sure you're leaving comments, asking questions. If you're looking for The Ant Ortiz on YouTube, he is The Ant Ortiz on YouTube. So go check out that YouTube channel today to get some franchise content and see some of the game that we've been talking about. If you haven't played MLB The Show, there's a lot of good visuals of what the game is on that page. And thank you so much for coming on. This has been another episode of Bricks Behind the Ivy, brought to you by Wrigleyville Sports, the best sports store in Wrigleyville, and Yaggy Road Roasting Company. It is giving you the energy like a late 9th inning rally or 10th inning rally like the Cubs last night, and they make coffee just as special as the moments you drink them in. We'll see you guys next week for regular content. Go Cubs.